Seems it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp proceeds mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Soul, where tonight it is the winning report, in which we look at all of the news, but from the angle of a winner. A winner is somebody who both knows their eternal soul and also understands logic and thought and the ability to release bias and prejudice and ignorance and see what might actually be going on in this place and what we might actually be able to do with these bodies that we're inhabiting for this life in service of all that is good, true, and beautiful. So as usual, we'll jump into it here tonight on this relatively sad day. It's 9/11. So it's always an interesting one for any of us who have been around that long and awake that long. And we also just had the murder of Charlie Kirk, of course, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So lots going on that we're going to talk about tonight. But before we jump into all of that, please go to roguesoul.org. You can book one-on-one healing and tarot and past life and sound healing sessions with me. You can see all of the books that I write and have channeled through. You can get them from me, Audible, Barnes & Noble, however you like to get your books. And you can also, for just a few more days, sign up for the Heart-Centered Healer course that is here on the site as well. There are payment options, so the Afterpay, Klarna, and all of that is built into the site. And so if that works for you, you're welcome to do that. And that and more is in the shop on the site. So all sorts of good things here at roguesoul.org. Everything I do is here. Go check it out. To support the show and what I do, it's best to go to Substack. rogueways.substack.com is where I publish all of my short written works, especially my articles on health and wellness, on healing, on politics, on the esoteric, on the occult, on the spiritual. But it's also where I have my channeled message from the spiritual ancestors who I've been working with and channeling for my entire life. You can read those messages here by becoming a paid supporter, or you can get those other articles I described at the free level. It's also, again, like I said, the best way to support the show. So you get the channel messages, but also be sharing, some support each month. Help keep going this project that I have here under Rogue Soul, in which I aim to help you navigate these times by being connected to your soul. Really interesting this today on the 11th of September. The world is ending is the post that I had. What's interesting to me is I wrote this post 3 or 4 days ago and set it to release today, which I often do just to sort of stagger. I don't want to, some days I have a lot of writing that comes through and a lot of channeled messages that come through. I don't want to dump them all out at once. And so I kind of set them to release over the next week or so. And this one was like that, but what perfect timing. And it's always true. And I couldn't have planned it better if I tried. And that's why I tell people that's what being a channeler is I am in the hands of something higher than myself. I couldn't have planned it all if I tried. The things that come through me, I couldn't have come up with if I tried. I'm not as clever as you might think. I really am not. I'm a very what you see is what you get kind of person, but things like this happen all the time. And it's because I've offered myself in service to the divine. So perfect timing for this. And when I wrote it, I was kind of like, does everyone think the world is ending right now? I don't know. That's what the channel message is saying. And so that's what we're going with. And yeah, the day that it was published, that is how a lot of people felt, both because of what I call synchronous recasting energy of 9/11 itself and that big, huge magic ritual that went on 24 years ago, which is still so powerful today. And also because of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So lots of people, in fact, felt like the world was different, was never going to be the same, or was ending. And so perfect timing. So not planned by me, planned by something much more intelligent than me. And available for you and anyone else who is a paid subscriber on rogueways.substack.com. So beautiful channel message there along with the rest. And please go be a subscriber there at least, if not a supporter, rogueways.substack.com. I also want to say, if you want my much more deeper and in-depth response to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I did do an episode last night called Political Assassination, in which we go into all of the different details, and especially the spiritual, psycho-spiritual, mental, societal implications of all of the things that have been happening around that event. So definitely check that out. Tonight we will not nearly go into as much detail about it because I spent an hour and a half talking about it yesterday. So so check that out. It's on Rumble, it's on YouTube, it's on the podcast platform, or wherever you are accessing Rogue Soul. That show is also there. And so we will talk a little bit about that because it is still obviously quite relevant today. Trump is going to award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. So he will receive that from Trump. I think it's an intelligent choice, even if he, were the Satan that a lot of people think he is. But it's also, I'm sure, what he wants to do, because he's genuinely deeply fond of Charlie Kirk and deeply sad to see him politically assassinated. And also because he did spend his entire life fighting for freedom of speech at the very least, and many more freedoms than that on top of it. So worthy, I think, recipient, now that I've learned who Charlie Kirk is and what he did. And I think it's good. So we'll call it a win that he will receive that medal. A reporter asked Trump, how do you want your supporters to respond to this? Charlie Kirk was a big advocate of nonviolence and free speech. And Trump says, I think that way. He was an advocate of nonviolence. That's the way I'd like to see people respond. So, this will be ignored by the people who think Trump is Hitler. This will be ignored by the people who think Trump is Satan. This will be ignored by the people, who just in general are black pilled or think only negative thoughts about Trump, or who think he's an actor or anything else. It'll be ignored that what he said is, yeah, just like January 6th, actually, I hope people just go home. I hope people don't do anything. I hope people aren't violent. That is what I would hope. He's pretty consistent on this message. And so probably won't be noticed by a lot of people, but we'll notice it here because it's a win for everyone when there's people who are advocating not to react, especially not in violence, to other violence. And that is a sane and, I think, very big thing to do. So good for him. This morning, Steven Crowder's team received an email from an officer at Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF, and the email included screenshot from what appeared to be an internal message describing a weapon and cartridges located by ATF and other law enforcement near the scene of the Charlie Kirk assassination at Utah Valley State University yesterday. And so this is a screenshot. You can see it here. It seems to be, again, exactly what he said. And it says in it, the spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds in the top-fed magazine. This was a bolt-action rifle, by the way. So a lot of people who are big on gun control and big on, semi-automatics, which is crazy, but especially automatics, also semi-automatics, which is every gun they've ever heard or seen in their lives. This is an exception. This was a bolt action. This was like you put a bullet in, you fire it, that's it. That's what you got. You put another bullet in when you're done. You have to load each bullet separately. This is going back to like archaic gun technology. This is what was used to murder Charlie Kirk. And 3 unspent rounds in the top-fed magazine. So they did actually have a top-feed magazine. So a little bit modified, but still single load. And it says, all cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. All of them do. So this seems to be a favorite thing of the left to do. We saw this with Luigi Mangione, whether it was real or fake or psyop or whatnot. We also saw it with that recent trans shooter in the Catholic school that was so devastating just recently, and now we're seeing it again here. So it seems to be a calling card of the radical left. Some people would say, therefore, it is a calling card of the PSYOP, and that none of this is actually real, and this has all been planned out in order to create our response to it, of course. I'll say this, it is absolutely political, and whether this person meant to be or not, they are absolutely a tool of the enemies of the Charlie Kirks and the right wings in the world. And if by extension, they are definitely the enemies of the current administration. That's absolutely true. It could even be that this person was prompted or promoted, like is often the case, from higher up or from organized or from wealthy individuals. Absolutely. And it is likely, like many of the other times, that this person is otherwise just a sort of quote unquote normal person, as in not military, not special ops, not in the Mossad, not any of those other things. But perhaps used by. But I'll say again that this has no traces, and doesn't really even smell like Israel to me. There's no reason. Yeah, there's people are pulling some threads of like, oh, Charlie Kirk was starting to turn against them, or he criticized October 7th, or he said it was a hoax, or this or that. Maybe, but overall, he's been an incredibly committed, staunch supporter of Israel, and most Israeli people and those who support Israel see him that way. It would be very silly if you had such a powerful asset and then you took them out just because they might be sort of starting to possibly question one of a million things. Someone else said, well, he let so-and-so speak at one of his events. He let Richard Gage speak at his events. Richard Gage has been on the show before. He's one of the most prominent 9/11 truthers, if you want to call him that, the person who's been pointing out the holes in the narrative this whole time. Richard Gage was he didn't believe 9/11 was, pulled off, but he believed in free speech. So to say like he had an anti-Israeli person at one of his events means nothing. He was a genuinely free speech guy. So I mean, take it wherever you want, but I'll say again, like, this is not Israel, in my opinion. At the very worst, it is just a deranged leftist, or sorry, at the least, it's a deranged leftist, and at the worst, it is, what I'm calling the satanic group, what I'm calling the old money group, what I'm calling the old regime, versus the Republicans / technocrats. So that's at the very worst, and that's not Israel. So trans ideology, and someone else has pointed out, well, this would be the easiest way to throw people off the scent of like who actually did it. Well, again, I think someone who's actually, hateful of the right wing of Charlie Kirk and his sort of narrative, it did it. Who promoted it? I don't know, but this person was clearly, seemingly, I'll say instead of clearly, seemingly very pro-trans and anti-fascist in their own mind. So I can totally see it. And we should always ask that, was this just planted here? Was that written on the bullets to throw the scent? And sure, but like, who else wanted Charlie Kirk dead but these people, right? So anyways, Stephen Crowder reduced that. It's not verified. The ATF hasn't said, yes, this is true, but that was leaked to him supposedly, and that's what we supposedly know about this. Here's images now actually verified, being released by FBI of Salt Lake City, of the shooter, who they think is the shooter, their best guess after these hours of investigation from all of the angles, all of the video, and who seemed to be leaving the scene in the right places at the right times to say, like, this is probably the guy. These are the images we have of this person. And so as soon as these images came out, this person's screwed, because then 4chan went at what 4chan does, and 4chan does it best. I mean, like, the FBI should just pay 4chan to be FBI, because they will find anything anywhere. And they seem to have located someone that, again, innocent until proven guilty. We don't know, but they have identified what they think is the main suspect, which is this Sky Valadez. Sky Valadez, Skye Valadez. And this person does match, if you're just saying, like, are these facial characteristics that we can see similar? Very much so, sure. Does it mean much? I mean, maybe not, but you could definitely imagine these are the same people. Here's some other angles of this person. Conveniently one-eyed, interesting there. I mean, again, I will tell you, lots of people have just seen it done so many times that they do it. And especially if you think you're a photographer, that's what photographers do. So by no means does that indicate this person is knowingly in any kind of cult or occult activity at all. And it is really interesting they're covering their right eye. So whether they mean to or not, they're right in line with what their future actions would be. And here's the same person on SoundCloud with a audio track. I don't know if it's a song or them talking, but it's titled Charlie Kirk Dead at 31. When this person got wind that they were even being suspected, this all disappeared. But guess what? It's all cached somewhere. Like, you can delete it, but it doesn't go anywhere. It's just not visible to the public yet. But not only does 4chan have the evidence, but like it's still there. SoundCloud still has it, you moron. So maybe it is this person, especially if they deleted that track, Charlie Kirk Dead at 31, a month before this happened. Then they seem to perhaps be guilty in their own mind, or fear that people might at least think they are. So why would you say Charlie Kirk dead at 31 a month before he dies at 31? No one expected him to die. I think almost no one expected him to die. We look back and we can say in hindsight, oh, you could have seen it coming. There was all these threats against him, but nobody actually expected it to happen, really. I mean, you just don't. I don't know. You just hope for the best, I guess. This person has that track on their SoundCloud. Same person that seems to match the identity and that 4chan is saying is the person. And then this person also had indicated on their various profiles that they lived in Utah. And then just when they deleted their Charlie Kirk Dead at 31 track on SoundCloud, they also deleted all of their information that said they were in Utah. So they seem to be covering their tracks, which you wouldn't do unless you perhaps had some guilt. So it does seem like this person is a good character to keep an eye on. I'm sure the FBI got wind of this from 4chan pretty quick. 4chan's got the good, the bad, the ugly, the neutral, the left, and the right wing. But mostly they're just hella autistic about this stuff. Like they will find anything anywhere. Pretty cool. So I am once again proud of 4chan. They're almost never wrong. So I want to say that we found the guy. Again, nothing official yet as of this show. And, yesterday I was talking about, especially in the episode I did, and I reposted a few of things of examples of the left celebrating this murder and being excited and happy for the death of a father and a husband. And, and I've talked about too, like the intimacy and vulnerability of seeing a body destroyed. It doesn't really matter what that body was doing. It doesn't matter what side that body was on. Like that, for me, being a human being with a heart still intact, it rips me apart. That could have been anybody and it would have ripped me apart. I can't not feel deeply when that's something that intimate and that vulnerable happens and I witness it. And so to see people celebrating this was just blowing my mind of just how sick you have to be, how disconnected from your soul. I feel so sad for these people. At first, I was just angry. I was disgusted. Like I wanted to force them to shut up, like that kind of reaction we all can fall into. But I came eventually to just so sad. It's so sad that you're this gross. You haven't learned better yet as a soul. This is disturbing. So those celebration videos are disturbing. Well, now we have the opposite coming out in droves. And there's a bunch of left-wing people or slightly centrist people, right? Or they think they are, whatever. But they identify as left-leaning at least, who are coming out saying how disturbed they are by the way they're seeing people respond to this. And here's a woman, one of many, who has come out and said this. And the people are saying the radical left lost millions of supporters. Well, yeah, it keeps happening, actually. That keeps happening every time we have an event like this, is that more and more of the left wakes up and goes, wait, are these people supposed to be in my party? Like, I don't want to be aligned with these people. This is crazy. So that's good to see. We can celebrate that win, that there are actually, and I said this yesterday and I'll say it again, anything like this is going to divide people more, but it's going to do it in a good way. Because a lot of people who just weren't sure, had never thought about it, or didn't ever feel the need to clarify much are going to look at it and go, oh, no, not this. I'm not about that. Now they're further on the side of humanity, of decency. I'm not talking about politics. I'm not talking about Democrat, Republican. I'm saying people who didn't realize that it had to actually be a choice between good and evil. Now realize that and say, this is not good. This is evil. And I'm not with it. It doesn't matter your politics. It doesn't matter your economic outlook or beliefs. It doesn't matter any of that. It matters if you understand what good and evil is. And I'm not on the side of evil. So that's a good thing, actually. It's a really good side effect. And I'm not saying I wish Charlie Kirk dead in any way. I'm saying we can actually see that there is some goodness coming from his murder, which is how things go, right? The darkest plots can be woven by the darkest people, and it will still be turned to light. So don't let it ever convince you otherwise. Everything serves the light eventually. And here we see more and more of that. So I'm glad. I'm glad there's people who are waking up to the good and evil and choosing a side. We also see some of these people who came out and said ridiculously horrible things instantly. Almost all of them of the same quality of, well, I don't condone violence, but. And anytime you hear the but, it means what I just said doesn't matter, but what I'm about to say does. But he did say those things, so what did you expect? All these people who were literally justifying his murder. And they say they're not, but they are. When you say, I don't condone violence, but you're going to die if you say this, then you condone violence. It's just what you're doing. You don't get to just double speak your way out of it. So some of those people got fired. Matthew Dowd is one of them. He said exactly what I just said, and then he was on MSNBC. I talked about him yesterday, and he's already fired. So good. I'm glad. If I had an employee and I saw that they were an evil person, I would also fire them. And yes, it is evil to celebrate murder. It's just there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You celebrate murder, you're evil. The end. So I'm glad. I think you should be fired. Yes. Or, I mean, I also think you should come out and apologize. You should make it right. But I wouldn't want a psychopath working for me. So I understand it. I mean, they're doing it for other reasons. They're doing it for PR reasons. They're doing it for people already don't watch them. And now even less people are going to because they're so disgusted by their response. Like they're trying to, pull people back in. But it's also right. So good. We'll take it as a win. Here's an even bigger win, and we'll move on from Charlie Kirk now and perhaps have to talk about it again next week because I'm sure the fallout's going to continue. But we'll move on to other things tonight, and huge win. I didn't see this coming. This is rad. It could be better, but this is a huge win nonetheless. A 4-minute long commercial. Big Pharma and news media are devastated as Trump executive order changes how drug ads work. So I don't know, maybe we'll get to the point where they make it illegal to even have drug advertisements on TV and the radio, which would be fantastic for all of us. Every other country, for the most part, doesn't allow it because it's such a conflict of interest. But we do because we're insane here in the United States. And so I don't know why they're not just making them illegal, but this is second best. This is second best to making those ads illegal, is to say you have to list literally every side effect. I don't know if you knew this, but they only have to list the ones that are, I don't know, in the top, however much percentage of people actually experience them, which means there's far worse ones that they're not listing because far fewer people experience them. Often death, for example, is one of those. And so now for them to have to read all of these, and there's standards, you can't just be like, no, I said them all. Right? You can't just like mash them into like 2 seconds and say you said them all. You have to say it at a certain speed that is technically audible to most brains. It's going to take them 4 minutes. That's kind of like the minimum for any drug, to read all the side effects and then also try to get in there. But like, we hope you take it, So this is good. Essentially, they're probably not going to do it. Essentially not. I will love to see what actually happens because this would be the best thing for everyone, is to not constantly be being told what they should take pharmaceutically on TV. So huge win. Celebrate that. Also a celebration mixed with some devastating understanding and clarity if you didn't already have it, but still a win. Still a win for clarity, still a win for truth, still a win for heading towards no vaccines for anyone. First study on 18,000 vaccinated versus unvaccinated children, and compared to unvaccinated kids, vaccinated kids had 6 times more autoimmune diseases. Oh, by the way, I have that. So that's vaccine. I've always assumed it's vaccine damage. There it is. 6 times more neurodevelopmental disorders. Oh, like autism, like all kinds of neurodevelopmental disorders. 4 times more asthma. Who do you know that has asthma? Handfuls of people. Those are vaccine damaged people. 4 times more speech disorders. I know someone with a speech disorder and asthma. Vaccine damage. 3.5 times more mental health issues. It turns out when your brain is laden with poisons and your body is struggling all of the time just to live, that you're much more likely to experience mental and emotional disorders. Yeah, that's true. 3.7 times more developmental delays. this is just some of what's come out of this huge research. This is making waves. It's part of a new documentary that's coming out. And this study also shows many of these things that we have come to expect as just like modern age diseases, like everyone's just dying, that unvaccinated kids had 0 incidents of. Out of 18,000, 0. So it's not just that people had 6 times more, 3 times more, 5 times more, 4 times. It's that they could have had none. We could have had kids that had almost no disease at all. It's so sad, and this is what we've always known, those of us who have woken up to the vaccine delusion, but which so many people are still caught under the gaslighting and the lies of. So good that it's coming out. So sad the devastation that vaccines have wreaked havoc on our populations, but we're getting more and more clarity on that. So pretty big win. Newly released emails show Fauci directed colleagues to delete this after you read it. He denied this under oath. These documents are now public, and Fauci will finally testify before Congress. This comes out from Senator Rand Paul, Ron Paul's son. And yeah, we knew that. We knew there was evidence for that. But now the evidence seems to be coming out in ways that are harder to ignore for those power structures. And so hopefully something will become of this, and Fauci will have something like justice. That would be amazing. So we can count that as a win as well. Unfortunately, yesterday here in Colorado, in Evergreen is a little town up in the mountains here. There was a school shooting. It does seem real. It does not seem like a false flag. There were people injured. They are all alive. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Because we just pray for the safety of children who are forced into government indoctrination centers and made to do so with no protection. An appeals court just ruled Vermont state athletics must allow Vermont Christian schools to rejoin after they were barred from participating for 2 years for objecting to males on girls' sports teams. So they had been barred. Christians are almost always the most oppressed of all, and here's another case of that. But the appeals court said that they must be allowed to play even if their religion says that they're not going to allow boys on girls' team. Good for them. Good for the appeals court. May they continue to see justice. This situation in which the Ukrainian model was stabbed by this man. Again, people keep saying she was stabbed in the neck. I didn't watch the whole video, but I watched enough of it to say it doesn't look like she's bleeding from her head or her neck. Maybe I totally missed that. Sorry if I'm misrepresenting it. I don't mean to be. I don't see that, and I didn't see that. So anyways, this situation where she was stabbed on the bus by this man who's clearly unwell. And people are like, I guess it became like a race issue. And then people are like, why do you make it a race issue? And well, this man literally said, I got the white girl. So he made it a race issue when he stabbed her because she was white. So no one's saying like anything about him being black. They're just saying he attacked her because she's white. That's all. I don't know. He said it, not us, We're just reporting the facts here best we can. Well, he is now saying the government had put devices inside of him that made him do it. And also said that she was reading his mind or like monitoring him. But he keeps saying in his call that, they put something, the material he calls it, they put something inside of his body, which is making him do it. We know here that is potentially actually possible, that somebody did put something in his body and is actually voice to skull communicating with him from afar and trying to get him to do things like this. So he might not be wrong about that. And also he's unwell. It says you can't actually then go forward with actually killing someone unless you're deeply unwell. So both things could be true, or he could just be schizophrenic. But he does say the government put materials in him, a chip in him, and was controlling him. So interesting side of that story coming out now too. Really, really sad, really unfortunate. Peace to their souls. We've got this number that's going to trigger everyone. 33 million voters have been run through a Trump administration citizenship check. They're just being checked to see if they're actually citizens and they're actually still alive, and they're of voting age. And so I think that's great. That sounds good. We should definitely be checking for things like that. So only real people are voting, and only people who are actually legally able to vote are voting. And so that sounds like a win to me. The Prime Minister Tusk of Poland says that Poland invokes Article 4 of the NATO treaty, meaning that everyone else has to come to their rescue, as they say that Russia has sent a drone into their airspace. Russia says, no, we didn't. We were close to your airspace, which is acceptable. And so, as is often the case in the fog of fifth generational war, we probably shouldn't draw any conclusions from any of this. And because there's been so many false flags that have tried to say that Russia is the aggressor in this war, I would lean towards, no, they didn't. You're making it up, and you're trying to start the hot war again instead of just the cold fifth generational war. So I don't buy it. That's my personal take on it. And, this is the way that they want to try to create war. Winners see that it's at least possible that it didn't happen. Also over in the EU, Ursula von der Leyen says we're on the brink, if not even at the start, of another global health crisis. The EU announces a new global health resilience initiative to combat disinformation. So they're not done with the COVID thing. They're not done with trying to steal your sovereignty and force you into whatever behaviors and choices they want based on the fear of a virus. And she might literally be telling us that they've already released or are about to ramp up something that will also come and decimate your immune system. They might be poisoning us. Who knows what else they might have, in mind. But I hope you joined with me in knowing that our bodies and souls are primary and they can do anything they want, and that there are always people who don't get sick in any mass poisoning or mass sickness event. And so we can always, no matter what the fear tells us, be on top of all of that, above it all, and not experience that, even if that's what the psychopaths have planned. So is she just saying it, or is she actually planned it and already done it? Does she know it's happening? Who knows? But that's what she says. And she's definitely a demon. Ursula von der Leyen also says there's simply no room or no time for nostalgia. Battle lines for New World Order based on power are being drawn right now. All these New World Order people, it's been a grip that you've been saying this stuff. We've got like 30 years of these people talking about their New World Order. I think it's come and gone, or it's come and transformed, or there's new world orders in mind at which you are at battle with. So I don't believe you. I know there's new world orders coming that have nothing to do with politics and have only to do with consciousness and the light. I know that. But whatever you're talking about is a bunch of hooey, miss. And winners know it. Trump was jeered by protesters as he dined at a Washington, D.C. restaurant. They said he's literally Hitler. They said Trump is the Hitler of our time. And I'm like, that's amazing. He hasn't killed a single person, and you think Hitler killed 6 million, but he's exactly like him. That's crazy. Hitler was also, by the way, a lot younger. Trump's pretty old. I don't know when he's going to get around to killing these people, but he better get a move on it. He's doing a really bad job of being Hitler. Like, really bad. He sucks. He's probably the worst Hitler ever. Sorry, Trump, but you are a really, really bad Hitler. But these people are convinced. It actually doesn't even matter what's true or not. They're just like, that is in their brain, and that's the end of the story, and nothing's ever going to shift. They're deeply unwell. Deeply unwell. So whatever. That's what was probably funny to watch, but here's some liberal white women who are preparing to collapse what they call President Trump's economy. Again, they give him so much credit. It's amazing. They're both like, oh, he's a stupid Cheeto taco or something, but also he's a mastermind Hitler. Like, wow. He is a complex character in your mind. It is actually hard to figure out. The double speak, double think is like so thick with you. It's so confusing, but it's amazing to watch the commitment to this delusion. So President Trump's economy, they're going to collapse it by not going to work for one day. Pretty amazing. They're very, very sure of their power. And I have some sympathy for this type of movement, right? I used to be a big proponent of the buy nothing movement since like 1996. And I don't know how much earlier than that it started. It might go back to like the 60s or 70s for all I know. It's something that was like so big and then it just disappeared and no one cared. But now people are remaking it in this new image, right? Of collapsing the economy or making an impact at least by what you buy or don't buy, or you know, the days you choose to buy nothing. And yeah, they're not going to go to work that day. You know, and many of them are probably union. They're probably safe. They might even work in very leftist places where, like, you know, mental health days and whatever are just like the norm. And so they'll probably get away with it. You know, but if it were me and it were my business and I had hired people and I knew there was something like this happening and then someone didn't come in that day, they wouldn't work for me anymore. Not because I care about this movement or not because I'm ideologically opposed to it, but because you're not committed to being a good worker for me. So why would you work for me? I don't need you, right? There's a million of you. And I also would never, ever be a publicly traded corporation or company because I wouldn't, you know, ever have union workers. In fact, I don't think at this point I would ever hire anybody, but I would have contracted people or consultants. And that's it. And that way it's so easy for both of us to come and go. And I don't owe you anything extra on top. And like, you can't own me, right, in court for ridiculous reasons and game the system. And you can't do things like this. So more and more people are probably going in those directions when these systems get too cumbersome. And it means that one person is on the hook for everything, being the employer, and the employee is never responsible for anything. Yeah, it gets a little bit lopsided. So, but I mean, dig your own grave. Stop going to work and have things like this, and cool, do it. You do you. I'm proud of you. White House backs appointing expert for alleged Trump Epstein letter. This is a confusing and stupid headline. What this is saying is that Trump says that he did not write this letter. I don't know if you heard of this letter. It's a really weird letter, and they're trying so hard to link him to Epstein. And it's so interesting because even before any of this was something that people wanted to talk about, we were talking about it here on Rogue Soul, and we talked about it a lot. And Trump was never a part of the Epstein thing. He was never, before this was even in anyone's mind, before anyone hated him deeply, he wasn't a part of it. He wasn't on the list. We had the list way back then. He wasn't on it. All these people went to Epstein Island over and over and over again, went to all his parties, were mentioned in all of these things. Trump was twice and never again. The people who were the victims have said they never saw Trump and he was never a part of anything. All of them say that. All sorts of evidence points to he wasn't a part of this, but they really want to make him a part of it instead of all of the people who actually were. Again, I'm not a Trump tart. I wouldn't care if he turns out to be, because I have no allegiance to him and I have no deep love for him, and I'm totally neutral on the guy. But it's just so obvious to me that he's not. He had this like card that they faked, and it was just this really weird like bromance card. I don't know why they don't have it in this article. It's because they don't actually do news. They just do editorials. But is this it? Maybe they'll show it here. Here it is. So he allegedly drew this like very strange, like neutered gray alien with hips. I don't know what else this is supposed to be. But he allegedly drew this on this weird like poem that says like Jeffrey, 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 like over and over again. It's just strange. It makes it sound like they're both gay, which would be fine, but I don't think is the case. It's just really weird. And so the media has said this is him, that he wrote this card to Jeffrey Epstein for his birthday, and that they therefore are very close friends. And someone even said like these lines are supposed to be boobs. I mean, like if you have seen a single woman naked, that is not where boobs go. And I think Donald Trump has seen plenty of women naked. I'm pretty sure he's had nearly any woman he's wanted for most of his life because he's had money his whole life. And yeah, you know, why would you draw the boobs there? Pretty weird. It's a pretty weird drawing. It's a pretty weird card. And the people who have hoaxed this have also said, like, those look like underage girl boobs to me. And I'm like, whoa, wow, pedo. Do they? They look like an alien body to me, because even underage girls' boobs aren't there. That's not where they're at on the torso. That's like if my boobs were right here. Like, what? Oh, so obviously a hoax. And then Trump has said so. And they're like, oh, of course he'd say so. I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, believe it if you want. I don't know. It looks obviously fake to me, but also, well, we'll come back to that. Just put a pin in that, and we'll get to this ridiculous news. The new emojis will come out and will include Bigfoot, orca whale, a treasure chest, and more. Aren't you excited for new emojis? Dude, I don't even look at the thousands of emojis we already have. I pick a few here and there, and they're in my recents, and I just reuse them over and over again because I don't want to waste my time looking for emojis. But the Unicode Consortium is announcing a new set of emojis, including a trombone, a treasure chest, eyes bulging face, a fight cloud. Did you ever know that you needed a fight cloud emoji? An apple core, an orca whale, a gender-neutral ballet dancer. How would you know it's gender neutral? It's the tiniest little thing that's ever existed. A landslide, and Bigfoot. It'll aim to enhance expression and messaging. Oh, because you needed the transgender ballet dancer, or else how could you express yourself when you're messaging people? You know that your expression of your true self has been limited without the apple core and the orca available to you. Now you're truly free. Now they have freed you completely, and you are able to express yourself 100% of the time. Thank God for the Unicode Consortium. So stupid. Nepal is having what has been ongoing my entire life, revolutions. Nepal has been in revolution my whole life. And right now they have also burned down the prime minister's house, and he has fled the country. This is nothing new for Nepal. I'll say it again. It's old habit for them to continuously revolt and try to be stable in their own country. So, when I was a communist agitator, Nepal was like our biggest dream come true, because they were actually doing it, and they were like fighting in the streets all the time, and they were like taking back their government, and they had rebel fighters in the woods, and it was like a movie. So we loved it. It was a great communist revolution there. And now they've burned down the PM's house. So he fled the country. This is in connection with a social media ban. The social media ban there, of course, like every corrupt government, aimed at suppressing or oppressing the people's ability to talk and gather and share information. So, so they burned his house down. Good. Thousands of starfish wash up on a Fife beach. That's in my stomping grounds of the Puget Sound. Oh, sorry, no. They just happen to also have a Fife in Ireland. All right. Well, good. I'm glad this isn't happening in the Puget Sound. And it's really unfortunate. Starfish have suffered immensely. When Fukushima happened, we lost all of our starfish in the Pacific Northwest. They just came back a handful of years ago and are starting to sort of proliferate again. But when I was a kid, you saw starfish on every single thing that was underwater. If it was a pole, if it was a boat, if it was like a rock, like there's starfish everywhere. And it was super eerie to lose them all, probably in connection with Fukushima. We don't know for sure if this is some sort of, tidal outbreak of some sort of bacteria, with like extreme warming or cooling that can occur. It can occur during stormy weather. It could also be like a spill of some kind that was undisclosed. It could also be the ongoing geomagnetic excursion. And this is happening at the same time a few days ago that a bunch of other things that are also possibly connected to the geomagnetic excursion took place. So we had a lot of, and we'll get to the next few things that seem like they might be connected to that, but we had a lot of them, and it was all at the same day, and it was right when we were getting hit with another solar storm. And again, these solar storms that we're getting hit with aren't necessarily that strong. It's that our magnetosphere is 30% weaker than it should be. So it's very weak. It's weaker all the time. And the sun also seems to be throwing more and more of these at us. And this is why we've said for many years now on this show that we're probably going to experience even more chaos and cataclysm as this comes to a head. So you can look perhaps to see more big storms, big climactic events, volcanoes, earthquakes, things like this, where sudden groups of animals just die in a location because that seemed to get hit, perhaps with even more of this cosmic energy. And also power outages, right? This is something that would definitely cause grid down situations and already seemingly has. And those tend to get covered up pretty quickly and blamed on other things. So they're definitely trying to play down the geomagnetic excursion. They can't hide it forever. That's for sure. So that's pretty sad. Pray for the starfish. Huge win in Florida as Florida declares an end of school vaccine mandates. Woo! And you can be sure they're about to therefore cause some sort of a fake pandemic or epidemic or outbreak in Florida. And like every other time that happens, it will be from people who are vaccinated. So they're not saying you can't have vaccines. They're saying you don't have to have them. And a ton of people still will. Of course, and great. They should be able to inject their children with any poison they want, I guess. But so many people now will be free from having to jump through hoops just to not inject their child with poison in the great state of Florida. Congratulations, Florida. Big win. And hopefully this continues to all of the states in our great nation. Unfortunately, our big US tech companies enabled the surveillance and detention of hundreds of thousands of Chinese citizens as they worked with the communist Chinese government to create the Golden Shield system, which is essentially their tracking, tracing, social credit system that has long been the scourge of the Chinese people. And those companies from the US that helped create all of that were Microsoft, Intel, IBM, Cisco, Oracle, and others. By the way, some of those were who supposedly helped track, trace, and organize the murder of all of those people in the Holocaust. Same companies. That's their whole game. These newer companies that are also in the tech sphere might not necessarily be a part of all of that, but might still also not be of the highest service to us. But this is the old money versus new money thing. This is the satanic versus the Luciferian thing. These are the different factions. So everyone I just listed is part of the satanic order at least. And the names you don't see there might be who you can look to be that new money, Luciferian, new world order people. So sad to learn, not that surprising, seems to be what they do throughout history, right? And, they perfect it in China. Their goal is to then bring it to the rest of the world and enslave you. Be forewarned if you hadn't somehow figured that out before now. That's absolutely the goal that they have. And they have the means to do it, but we won't let them. So here's what I was saying earlier, another possible geomagnetic excursion event, a power outage in Berlin. The police, they say, suspect an attack by extremists. They say politically motivated arson may have caused this. It is also possible that the geomagnetic excursion, which does and has already caused power outages, would also in those outages cause things to explode or spark and create a fire. So if a fire did happen, that doesn't have to be arson. And it could be arson. And it could be that a leftist extremist group took down the power grid in order to draw attention to their cause for climate change or whatever. Which is what they're saying happened. And it could be that the geomagnetic excursion did it, and this is another cover for it, just like we saw them cover before. The previous cover was a little bit more obvious because when it first went down, the power went down, and this was in Spain and Portugal and France, remember? And this whole entire region lost power at once. And at first they had reports of this seems to be an atmospheric disturbance that affected the grid. And, at first we were getting the truth. And then they were like, oh, no, it totally wasn't that. It was this other thing. So, this is a little harder to tell. Could go either way. Who knows? But we'll just remember that it could be the geomagnetic excursion and not a leftist extremist group. Because again, this happened the same day as all those starfish were dead and some other things were occurring, and we were getting hit with a solar storm. And so here's another thing that might be on that same day and connected. Microsoft says their Azure service was affected by damaged Red Sea cables. And it is a place of contention. And it is a place where we have these undersea cables, which again, people don't know that the internet actually works through these cables and not just like through the ether like our minds work. But anyway, yeah, so it is a place where this could happen. It is a place where definitely they could have gone down and cut these cables, right? The Houthis or Yemen or whoever, definitely could do that. And also it could be that there was something being affected by a geomagnetic excursion event of solar radiation coming into the system and shutting down this cloud service and them just blaming it on that. So again, both of those stories are could go either way. We're not really sure. Not really sure. But back here again in Washington, D.C., we have law enforcement officials have removed a peace vigil that had stood outside the White House for more than 4 decades after President Trump ordered it to be taken down as part of the clearing of homeless encampments in the nation's capital. Yeah, 4 decades. And that's cool. I mean, I don't really know exactly who you are, what your thing is. And if it is really a peace vigil and you're just there to promote peace, then that's cool too. If it turned into a homeless camp and it was just a bunch of chaos, I would also take it down personally and want it removed. But the peace part's nice. You could do other things though. You don't have to live on the street in order to have a peace vigil that is effective. So yeah, I'm mixed on this. I don't know why you have to take it down, but I also am not there. So there might be really good reasons to take it down. I don't know. You tell me if you know anything more about it than that. Someone said, this is what a communist dictator would do. Yeah, I mean, it's also something that someone who maybe sees a genuine danger in a homeless encampment might do. You don't have to be a communist dictator. It's saying communist dictators also eat bread. Are you going to eat bread? Are you going to be a bread-eating communist dictator? You're well, no, that's not really how logic works, but thanks. Boom. The senator from Virginia should be ashamed of himself, Trump says, as he smokes the tyrant Tim Kaine for claiming rights come from government and not God, and calling God-given rights a, quote, extremely troubling Iranian belief. I don't know if you saw this or heard this. I'm not sure who Tim Kaine even is, but Tim Kaine, I heard a clip of him saying that rights come from the government, which seems crazy to me. I think people think this is a Christian thing to believe that rights come from God. It's not a Christian thing. It's an ancient thing. It precedes Christianity. It's actually a humanist thing. It isn't a cosmic thing. It's a mystic thing. It's just an understanding of self thing. If you just know yourself, you know that your rights come from wherever you came from before this. You know there's no person who can tell you what to do or how to do it or what you deserve or don't deserve. That doesn't exist on Earth. That's a higher level thing that comes with you as you come here. You are born with those rights. So you could call it God-given if you want. You could call it inherent to all human beings. It doesn't matter how you describe that, but that general understanding precedes anything you could call Christianity. And so Tim Kaine saying that these rights come from government, not God, is a bit insane. It's a bit crazy. It's also very dangerous. Because if you actually believe your rights come from the government, well, then they can be taken away from you. And you can believe that they can't be taken away from you. And therefore, they're actually gone. Because you have to know that you hold your rights internally, or else they're gone already. You never had them to begin with. You have to know yourself well enough to know where your rights are. They're inside of you. And then no one can take them from you. Oh, people can do horrible things, and they can, go against natural law, cosmic law, and they can, force you to do things against your will. Unfortunately, that's something that demonic people do. and they're still your rights. They still can't actually be taken from you, but you have to know them for that to be true. So for him to say this is dangerous, this dangerous precedent to try to set, and it's a really crazy thing to say out loud, in my opinion. But if you're anti-Christian enough and you're a Satanist, it's exactly what you would say. And I don't know him, but that's what he sounds like. He's making the argument of an anti-Christian and a Satanist. And he talks about how, oh, in Iran, they think their rights come from God, and look at their theocratic state. You're like, well, those two things have nothing to do with each other. A theocratic state is not a state in which people believe in God-given rights. If so, we've been a theocratic state from the beginning, because that's been literally in our Constitution, in our Declaration of Independence, in our core belief system from our founding the whole time. And we're definitely not a theocratic state. So pretty silly, pretty weird to say out loud. Like, no one made you say that. Nobody was like, hey, Tim Kaine, what do you think about theocracies and God-given rights versus state rights? Like, like you just chose to do that. It's very strange. So I'm with Trump on this. He should be ashamed of himself. It's a disturbing thing to say out loud, but he did it. He did it, and he's probably a leftist. You'd have to be to say something like that out loud. It's a crazy thing to say out loud. It makes sense why the extreme left can't have religion or spirituality. When I was a communist, that's what actually made me break from communism, was when I learned that not just Christians, which at the time I was somewhat okay with, I'm very ashamed of that, but not just Christians would be put into the re-education camps, but so would anyone who believed in God or the soul. And I was like, wait, that's me. And they're like, yeah, then you'd be put in the camps. I'm like, so I'm here agitating for my own enslavement? And they were like, yeah, until you learn better and do better. Yeah. I'm like, oh, well, I'll never see you again. I do. Like it was like an instant separation, because I'm like, I know my soul. That's like beyond something, that I can't unlearn that. I know it. I've experienced it directly. I don't believe it. I wasn't told it. I didn't find it in a Bible. I learned that directly. So I can't undo it. So you're going to put me in a camp, right? So it makes sense why they can't have that. Because if you have a belief and understanding and knowing of your own soul, like I said, that makes you a winner. You can see through all this propaganda. You can see through all this stuff. And you could never have your dignity taken from you. You could never be convinced that you should be enslaved, or that you are a virus or a disease on this planet, or that you don't have rights. See the problem? So if there's a reason communism goes after spirituality and specifically Christianity as well. And Trump doesn't. Supreme Court lifts the restrictions on the roving ICE raids in Los Angeles. And so they're free to continue to deport people in Los Angeles. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court said that, of course, as you would expect, that's what's legal. And so that's normal. So we'll say, good thing justice is winning. Trump says, you hear about anti-Semitic, but you don't hear about anti-Christian. I'm not sure what the context was or where he was saying this, but, some kind of press conference or speech or something here. And he says that. And this was just 3 days ago on the September 8th that he said that. And I find it really important for a few reasons. One, because it's true. I actually didn't know there was a worldwide anti-Christian sort of specific movement, and that more Christians are murdered for their religion than of any other religion in the world. I didn't know these things because in the United States, we're so inculcated to be anti-Christian, actually. And so I didn't know. And so I think it's important to say it. I also think it's interesting because, again, people are constantly tying Trump to Israel, making him their lapdog and saying that that's an absolute and a for sure thing. But he constantly has at least this slight pushback and things that don't quite fit that narrative. And to talk about anti-Christian in this moment is very interesting. And, and it also could potentially serve Israel's expansion in their region too, because there are so many Christians in that region that are being oppressed. So it's not necessarily this like anti-Israel thing, but it's definitely not always brought up when we're talking about anti-Semitism. So it's at least interesting to know it's definitely true. And so I appreciate it being said. Speaking of Christianity, Trump actually tweeted, "Happy birthday, Mary, Queen of Peace." You may remember on the 8th, I actually did a show about Mary's birthday. It's because I saw this tweet and I didn't know Mary had an official birthday with the church. So if you didn't hear that episode, it's worth your time. Go check it out. But yeah, happy birthday. He tweets this beautiful statue, by the way, back when people used to do amazing things with their time instead of wasting all of it like we seem to do today. To give us credit, we're quite unhealthy. So this is probably the best we can do. But ideally, we'll get back to a state of health and be able to do things like this again. How beautiful. And happy birthday, Mary. I'll just say, I don't remember many people being actually spiritual or religious. I only remember politicians just saying they're Catholic and maybe showing up at like a church here or there on a special day, but like actually tweeting about it, talking about it, promoting it. I don't remember that. And that's really interesting to me. So I liked that. I like it a lot. And an appeals court has unfortunately upheld the $83 million judgment against Trump for defaming E. Jean Carroll, the woman who talked about her rape fantasy right before she then said that Trump raped her. Excuse me, I just had to sneeze. So I don't think that that's a very I think it's a lawfare sort of case. I think it's just being waged against him because they hate him, and it's unfortunate that it was upheld. I'm sure it's going to continue to be appealed more, and hopefully eventually will be overturned. Pope Leo the 14th has declared a 15-year-old influencer computer whiz as God's influencer and a saint. It's actually hard to be declared a saint usually, and I'm not going to lie, this kid wasn't a saint. So it's again another thing where I feel like whatever you love, hate, or don't feel anything about the church, they're definitely being turned into not the church. Like everything popes do and say these days is like very specifically against the tenets of the church. And so I did an episode recently about the Eastern Orthodox Church, which actually is true to its roots. And that direction might be a better one to look to see actual saints instead of boys who, I'm not saying there's any problem with this kid. She's not a saint. A saint has to like perform miracles and, be a channel for God's light and, be, what we might call paranormal in nature. And this kid just had leukemia and like was a computer whiz. So I don't know. Congratulations to him, though. May his soul be excited about it. Phillies fan reveals why he gave a home run baseball to a viral woman who demanded it from his son. He says, well, she was so adamant and loud. This poor guy. I don't know. I didn't really know what the Phillies Karen thing was, but now I get it. This guy found a baseball, got hit up into the stands and it rolled around under seats and he was chasing it and he grabbed it and he went back to his seat. And the whole time he didn't even know that apparently she was also after it. And she apparently felt like because it had rolled closer to her at some point that it should have been hers or that it was hers. And so she went up and just screamed in his face, which is ridiculous. His children were right there. You can see this image of her screaming in his face and his kid is right there. She's screaming right at him. He has his fist up. Good for him. I think he's like, hey, man, come closer. I'm going to punch you in the head to protect your kid, right? I would too. And yeah, it's just inappropriate to scream like that in front of a child. Like you're supposed to be an adult. You're supposed to show children how to be an adult by being an adult all of the times that you're in public. And instead she freaks out and loses it on this guy. And so he gives her the ball. And like, honestly, that is actually the best choice. It is both a good way to show your children how to de-escalate a situation in which what is happening isn't actually important. Right? No one's life is threatened. It's not like a matter of, deep spiritual principle or something. Like it's just like, it's a ball, dude. And if you're going to freak out and lose it and like threaten violence at me, then here, take the ball and get out. Right? It's actually a good, I think, a good example to set for your children. So cool for him. But he was like, honestly, I just wanted her to shut up and go away. So which I'm like, yeah, I relate to that too. Like, get this person off me. What's cool though, as you've probably heard since then, is that this kid was actually then given a baseball, a bat, a backseat pass or backstage pass or something, or like, tickets to other games and being flown out to play. So he's received so much actually because of that. So it's kind of cool. It's pretty cool that people acknowledged that it was wrong of her to do that, acknowledged that we can't do anything about it. She already did it, and that's that. But here's what we can do about it, right? We can show that kid that, like, you actually deserve to have kept that ball. And so since you couldn't, here's all these other gifts. So pretty cool. He got to see a good example. He got to see how you handle stressful situations with some grace. And then he also got huge rewards for it. The win-win-win. We'll call it a win for everyone except the Karen who has to live with her shame for the rest of eternity. Here's another fun win. Hikers who climbed a Colorado mountain got more than just a sweeping view at the top. A man in an ice cream cone costume unexpectedly was handing out frozen treats. The man carried ice cream sandwiches and dry ice in a 60-pound pack up Huron Peak over the Labor Day weekend. Some declared him a legendary. Get it? Dairy, legendary. While others also marveled at his ability to climb the mountain with such a heavy pack. There he is in a picture, handing out ice cream to people. Pretty cool. Like, senseless acts of kindness make me very happy. So win-win-win for humanity. Over in the UK, they're moving their migrants into military barracks. So people have had a good uprising over all of the rapes, all of the murders, all of the horror that's been happening to their women and children at the hands of illegal migrants over in the UK. They've been essentially driving the migrants out of these hotels and these populated areas. And so the government, not wanting to deport them for some reason, is then now housing them in military barracks. Which, fine, I guess. Like, you're behind, I mean, you've imprisoned yourself now. You're behind like razor wire and you're way less free. So wherever you came from, whatever you thought you were doing, now you've landed yourself in military prison, essentially, with a couple perks. Still a taxpayer expense, still ridiculous in my book, but way better than letting people who think it's okay to rape children and women wander around your cities. So we'll call it a win. In Berlin, there are so many immigrants that have not in any way acculturated that 55% of Berlin's police candidates don't speak German. These are the candidates. I don't know what the actual police, the people who've actually been accepted or graduated or whatever are going on, right? Like, maybe they're a little better by then. But 55%. So they need language support and training in the language. Like, well, why are they even police? What is even happening? You just have people who have no idea about your culture, aren't your culture, don't know your rules or your laws, are about to gain power by becoming police people and don't even know your language. That seems extreme to me. That seems like an extreme choice. So, yeah. They are attributing part of this too to a sort of DEI-like atmosphere where being non-German or non-white is considered a benefit for your numbers to make you seem like you are diversified. It's so ridiculous. So that's happening in Germany. And in the UK, again, a new immigration minister is Shabana Mahmood, who is going to take her oath of office on the Quran. She's the immigration officer, and she's going to take her oath on the Quran. Yeah. It's saying she's the first UK politician that's ever going to take an oath on the Quran. It's again, like, I don't have anything problem with the Quran. I don't know that anyone else does. I think it's interesting that you are essentially a foreign culture. I mean, she's wearing, the political version of the hijab or whatever. Like hijab. I can't even remember. I lived in the Middle East and I can't even remember these words. Which is also fine, but it's just a sign, right? Like, your culture is not that of the UK. And your allegiance isn't to the culture of the UK. And swearing on the Quran, your religion isn't that of the UK. I know they're not a theocratic or, they're a secular country, but let's be realistic. It's a Christian country. So none of your cultural aspects match in any way this place. And now you're going to be the immigration minister. You're going to decide who gets to come there or not. It seems like a poor choice to me. It seems like a bad match. I don't think she's a bad person. I don't know anything about her. It just seems like those things aren't aligned. If you don't have allegiance to this country, and you don't have allegiance to its culture, and it isn't your identity, what good would you be at determining what is good or bad for the nation in terms of immigration? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Has nothing to do with the judgment of character or whether you're a good or bad person or anything. It's just not the right fit. It's like putting a cat in charge of deciding what to do about dogs. A police department in the US has presented the coat of arms, their new coat of arms, and it has Arabic lettering. So similar thing happening here as in Germany and the UK. Again, is there anything specifically wrong with having Arabic lettering on your police coat of arms? Not specifically, except you're in the United States and this is not connected with our culture, our heritage, our language. You're in a position of power. You're a department of power. And you have no reflection of our culture and our country in this coat of arms. So it's just kind of stunning. It's just kind of stunning. First time that this has happened in the country. This is Dearborn Heights Police in Michigan. It's an optional patch, at least, so that's cool. It's not the official main patch, and it features both English and Arabic text in Michigan. This patch is meant to recognize the diversity in the community, where nearly 39% of residents are of Middle Eastern or North African descent. How did that happen? Is that in the last 4 years that they, in some of these places, they just dumped just thousands and thousands of unvetted random immigrants who don't speak English in the streets? Or what? So, whatever, cool. If that's what that community loves and wants, there's nothing specifically wrong with it. Again, it seems like a strange choice to me, and it seems like it doesn't actually reflect this country and its culture. So we're back to Trump and Epstein now. I meant to put this alongside the Jeffrey Epstein card that he did not write. But here's someone who's saying, if you're going to be a reply guy denying that Trump was an FBI informant in the 1980s, make sure there aren't FBI memos confirming that Trump was an FBI informant in the 1980s. And then he puts these documents here that prove that Trump was an FBI informant in the 1980s. He also says Trump allowed the FBI to use his casinos to take down the mob, and that Trump worked as an informant for the FBI since then. So, this is what also I had said and other people had suggested, that the few times Donald Trump was seen with Epstein don't indicate anything, but it has also come out that he might have been working for the FBI to try to sort of ensnare or find out more about Jeffrey Epstein and his activities. And that's not a crazy thought, because he's done it before, here specifically against the mob. That was already his role. If you look at also this sort of CIA versus FBI sort of thing, all of the people who've been assassinated for the most part have been at the hands of the CIA, and the CIA has seemed to serve foreign interests, whereas the FBI seems to actually have some sort of unity and commitment to our country, sovereignty. So there's this sort of split between the CIA and the FBI, and Trump seems to have served the FBI most of his life. It just makes you wonder, right? I mean, people talk about this like it's retarded. People talk about it as though our government is some sort of unified whole. People talk about it as if the whole world is one unified whole of power. Well, no, it would be way easier to take us over and mind chip us all or do whatever else if it was one unified power center. It's like a ridiculous belief if you actually even probe it for a second. There's a huge conglomeration of power. There's many, many layers to, power structures that all serve each other. And then there's rival power structures. And this is perhaps one example of that, of FBI versus CIA, internal versus external. And sovereignty, US based, like actual patriotism versus, selling out to the Mossad in Israel. I don't need to say anything else about it. That's just another piece that has come out in my mind that has helped me understand the storyline of what's actually going on right now, or seems to, and makes more sense actually than any other storyline I've seen anyone else put together. So again, it doesn't make him some kind of god, some kind of savior, some kind of perfect person, like the best guy that ever lived. Nothing. But it makes him someone that really wasn't probably supposed to become president and is actually deeply hated by so much of the power structure in the world. This little robot, it was seen in China, sorry. And so supposedly what this robot is like a enforcer of laws. And this guy wasn't supposed to be riding his little moped thing on the sidewalk. It's actually illegal in most places, including the US. You might not know because everyone just does it. And so this robot comes up and is like, no. And it just runs up to him and it like stands in the way. And the guy gets off his moped and backs away, which I would do too, because like a robot's running at him. But then the robot just sort of attacks the moped. It's like goes up to it. It's like punching it or something. And I don't know. That's what's supposedly going on here. And that's China. They have been building robots that are more and more advanced over the years. They used them way back in the 2008, I think, Olympics, all kinds of stuff. So this is what, almost 20 years later. They're much more advanced now and they have so many of them. And yes, they're definitely used for crowd suppression, enforcement of tyranny in this case, because it's China, and an oppression of people. So pretty creepy stuff. Also on the tech front, Warner Brothers has sued Midjourney. Midjourney, of course, was that first big AI image generating option that you had way back, whenever that was, where we were playing with that here on Rogue Soul as well. And so Midjourney is being sued by Warner Brothers for being able to generate images of Superman, Batman, and other proprietary characters. So we saw this a bit with the Studio Ghibli thing. And now we're seeing it here. And so I think this is the first big suit of its kind by a pretty powerful entity against a very specific AI generative AI machine. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting because it'll set the precedent for the future of how proprietary information is handled in these AI, large language applications like ChatGPT and such. So pretty cool. We'll see. Not cool. Magnet-controlled micro-robot sperm are now in existence. Researchers have engineered biohybrid micro-robots using dead bull sperm coated with iron oxide nanoparticles, enabling precise control and tracking via X-ray guided magnetic fields for potential medical use in the reproductive tract. Oh, that's not all, I'm sure. If you've developed anything that you can manipulate from afar to go to a specific place in the body, I'm pretty sure you've used it for other applications than helping people get pregnant or dealing with things in their reproductive system. So disturbing. So disturbing. This biohybrid robotics has been one of the most disturbing things. I started writing about this and talking about this in 2009, and it's 2025 now. And now they have sperm-sized biohybrid micro-robots that can be remotely controlled from a distance. Deeply disturbing. So there's lots about that. I could do a whole episode about it. I'm going to call that not a win and say, thank God the sun has the ability to shut down all of these electronics and robotics, because where would we be otherwise? Oh, we have restored the United States Department of War. It is no longer the Department of Defense. It went back to its original name, which was the Department of War, and now it is the Department of War again. That is that. I don't care. Some people do. I don't know why. It's a name. It doesn't matter. RFK advisor to claim vaccines cause cancer at a reform conference, and he did. He came out and he said the royal family's cancer was because of these gene editing injections that shouldn't be called vaccines. He said they cause turbo cancers. They're tumor suppressing genes that they affect and therefore allow cancer. It's caused serious harm to people. So pretty cool to see this chief medical advisor for the Maha campaign talk about this openly and get press around it. Very cool. It's not wrong. He's true. He's true. OpenAI has announced an AI-powered hiring platform to take on LinkedIn, and they've also announced certifying 10 million Americans by 2030 in their OpenAI Academy, which will just be using AI or something. So they say this is commitment to expand AI literacy and tackle potential disruptions caused by AI in the job market. It doesn't even make sense. They're like, we're going to take away all your jobs, but we're going to train you in how to talk to a chatbot. So don't worry. You're like, well, why would that help me? What job would there be in me talking to AI or whatever? Like, it's so silly. But whatever, people are going to do it. That's for sure. They're definitely going to find their 10 million people. And OpenAI Academy will be a thing. AI fluency, they're calling it. You could instead call it AI propaganda. That's much more likely what it's going to be. So they're going to take down LinkedIn and put a bunch of propaganda out there. But perhaps a huge win for many of you. I don't know how many of you invest in gold, but gold surpassed $3,600 per ounce for the first time in history on Friday. I mean, I think that's good for people who have gold, right? That's what I would take that as. So congratulations, I think. And we'll end here with this reminder of how to think critically. So I saw this post where someone was arguing that the left, so again, we're back to Democrat, Republican, left and right, that the left is more intelligent and that science has shown that. And, clarified that like, well, the left is more educated, but actually, as far as IQ, the right is more intelligent. And people are like, you're right, where's your data? And then you find like the research, which was actually done well and is actually accurate and is actually a big enough study and et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, well, here's this study. And this study has come up now. And people are actually using this to say that the left is smarter than the right. But this is a purely bullshit study. And it's 2025 is when it was published in March, so recent. It says, does intelligence have non-linear effects on political opinions? We sought to study intelligence's relationship to political opinions with particular interest in non-linear associations, which means almost nothing. And what they are actually saying is things that aren't just directly database like IQ, non-linear. Things that we say mean intelligence, and therefore they do. It says we surveyed 1,003 American adults using Prolific, where we measured English vocabulary ability as well as 26 political opinions. So vocabulary and political opinions. Vocabulary. This is the stupidest thing you could almost ever say, and especially in a scientific journal study. That vocabulary could possibly be equated to intelligence. Do you know what's not on an IQ test? A vocabulary test. Do you know why? Because it has nothing to do with your intelligence. It has to do with your memory, or possibly how much you've read, or possibly how much you've listened to people speak, and nothing else. You can be the stupidest person and have a ton of vocabulary. I knew a girl that was under 80 IQ points, and you couldn't tell until you asked her to do a specific sort of academic or intelligence-based task, and then she could never do even the most simple thing because she's retarded. And that's what it means, right? She has been developmentally retarded. She has not progressed, and her brain is stuck, and her intelligence is below 80. That's how they measure it. But if you talked to her, she seems intelligent because she can say all of these things that sound well thought out and well put together and like good vocabulary. But then she does the task, she can't do anything. So you realize she is an excellent mimic. She's just saying what she's heard other people say. She's saying it with the mannerisms she saw them use. She could come up to you and have this whole conversation. You could be like, wow, that's a nice, intelligent person. And then, no, below 80 IQ, can't do anything, can't think through things, doesn't have the ability to use logic, just has the ability to mimic. So could she do well on a vocabulary test when it's literally just asking you what the meaning of the word is? Maybe. But is she intelligent? No. So it's already stupid. This is right at the beginning of the study. It says, we found that intelligence has detectable linear associations with most political opinions. Using splines, we found evidence of nonlinear effects on both individual opinions and general conservatism score. Specifically, the association between intelligence and conservatism was mainly negative, but became null or positive and right tail at the change point around 120 IQ. So they're saying if you measured IQ with it, then a right wing could start to look intelligent despite their lack of vocabulary. Right in the beginning, you can determine this study is bullshit because they've already said the way they're studying intelligence is vocabulary, which isn't intelligence. And then they tell you that it's a negative association, meaning people with lower vocabulary tend to be Republican. But that if you look at IQ, that's no longer true. Actually, high IQ people tend to be Republican. So they admit it right in the abstract. But if you don't know how to read studies and you just take their like, oh, we found that the Republicans are stupid part, then you think that you've got something, but you don't. Also, do you know how many questions they asked them? 10. They asked them 10 questions about vocabulary, and they based their entire study off of that. That is a poorly designed study. I'm going to ask you 10 vocabulary questions, and if you don't do well at them, I'm going to assume you're stupid for no reason at all. Then I'm going to ask if you're Democrat or Republican. By the way, they didn't include everybody. They cherry-picked the people they included. So they're like, Democrats tend to have better vocabulary and are intelligent in our study because we picked the ones that did. We left out the ones that didn't. And we did the opposite with the Republicans. Yeah, you can publish studies like this. There's no laws against it. And then stupid people who don't know how to read studies can go, oh, Democrats are smarter. You know, it's interesting too. They actually say in this study that it is true in general, and it has always been true, that Republicans tend to have higher IQs and more intelligence. And the only time that has ever changed is in the past 8 to 10 years because of the populist shift towards conservatism. And anytime you ever take a huge chunk of people and shove them into anything you're measuring, it's going to skew the data. It's going to drag it down because it's going to drag it down to the average because it's a giant glut of people. That's how numbers work. So you both can't have too small, 10 questions, 12 people, right? And you can't have too big because now you're like, well, now we're just averaging out to the point of absurdity. So only in the past 8 to 10 years has that even shifted, that now it's not necessarily true that the people who are associating with the right do have the higher intelligence rating because it's such a populist movement now, because it's so huge actually that most people who used to call themselves left are now on the right. So it did shift. But who's left on the left, they're not more intelligent. No, but in a very skewed study, you can ask them 10 vocabulary questions and you can only pick the people who did well on that. And then you can say they're more intelligent if you're a dishonest person. And that's what's happened here. So this has been your continuing lesson in remembering how to use logic, how to not just take people at their word, not just take headlines at their word, don't even take studies at their word. If you haven't learned anything else than that, you should do that. I spent at least a year of my graduate program just learning how to understand that most studies lie and see through them. That was an entire series of classes we had at the graduate level, because if you're going to do studies and you're going to use them to write your theses and your doctorate, and you're going to do that, then you better know what you're reading and how to do it. And if you're going to use them to lie, you better know how. But if you're going to use them to tell the truth, you better be able to find the truth amidst all those lies. So remember that there are so many people who will lie to you. Remember, it's not actually a race anyway of who's more intelligent, but we definitely don't need to lie to each other about it. And until we recognize that All of us have value, even if we're stupid. Travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Glued to them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp precede this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.